What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the MCU Re-Viewed. Today, it's all about Iron Man 2. Look at that. Just like last week, we talked about the Incredible Hulk and how they had kind of the green color palette theme throughout. We've got our red theme here today. I've got a red drink here that is from our friends at Community Beer Works. John's got his fancy new Avengers shirt because he apparently didn't have just about anything Marvel before, apparently.
Yeah, that was a weird revelation. I was like, oh, what should I wear for recording these MCU shows? And I go through my wardrobe. I'm like, I don't have any Marvel clothes. Oh, fix that.
Eye-opening.
Yeah.
Exposed.
Big problem.
Rashawn's got the red on over there. He's got his wonderful Marvel hoodie on.
I think this hoodie's gonna be my new staple for the show. I mean, once a week, I think that'll be perfect.
You want to get red.
John is in the scene from Spaceballs towards the end of the movie when the ship's sirens are going off. Oh, apparently.
So first of all,
I know you're an angel.
There's sirens there's sirens on my end, and Josiah's talking red, so we can get red.
Let's do it. So thanks for coming back for another episode here. We've had a blast with this series so far. We're watching along one episode or one movie per week of the MCU. This is in podcast form and at youtube.com/the Geekiverse. And as always, the series is presented by our wonderful friends at Fantastic. Fantastic sells geeky themed shirts that help families, charities, and those in need. You can check that out at 26shirts.com/Fantastic. All right, boys, we got through the Hulk. We're back to one of our faves. Good movies. Iron Man 2. Can't wait to see where we all rank this later on. I feel like we're all either there's no in between. We'll all just agree like that, or there will be some contention.
There will be contention.
Wait.
There will be no agreement.
Yep.
I'm just going to predict it right now. Me and Rashawn are going to put it number 2, and you're going to put it number 1. And that's just a prediction. That's just basing my opinion off what I know, how I know these people in the room right now. Just throwing it out there. We'll see how it comes out at the end.
Michael Jordan would have never put it number 1. That's ridiculous. That's absurd. You guys are ridiculous.
That's all I'm saying.
So let's talk about the movie here. I guess first impressions of it. In a nutshell, what do you think of Iron Man 2? Let's start with John.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. So I think Iron Man 2 is one of those ones that throughout the years people have soured on as you sip on your nice, beautiful sour beer. I always hear people say like, "Ah, man, Iron Man 2 is the one." Like that's where the Iron Man series kind of just doesn't hold up. It's a weak plot. It's not necessarily the strongest Iron Man movie. I guess I hear that for 2 and 3, but rewatching these, I just don't see it, man. I love Iron Man 2. It's such a fun movie. You're giving me more Tony Stark. You're giving me more MCU. And I think this movie is like where they really, really nailed in, like, all right, we're building some MCU stuff. We're in here. We're getting in. We're not only going to tell you this story, this Iron Man 2 story, which is a lot of fun. Sure, there's some flaws we can get into, but we're going to plant some seeds, and we're really going to start telling you a bigger story. Super evident.
I've got a ton of notes on a lot of what you mentioned there with MCU building universe building, if you will.
Yeah.
Which we'll kind of get to, but I think this is the movie where like he really, Robert Downey Jr. is great in Iron Man 1, but here he like really stepped into those shoes, if you will. I think this was next level stuff. Rashawn, give us your take on Iron Man 2.
Yeah, so in terms of what John brought up, at least any people that have ever watched a movie news or again around any of the Marvel circles, this game has gotten poo-pooed like its entire lifespan, and I don't see it. I agree with you guys. I don't see it. It's not the worst Iron Man movie. Spoiler alert.
All right, so we are going to disagree on a lot of stuff.
This is going to get good over the next few weeks, folks. You get your popcorn ready.
No, you say you can't see it. I can see it. I can see why people might hop in and like.
I think they think that way because it's cheesy. I think it's cheesy in a good way in a lot of parts.
Well, yeah. All right, let's talk about that. Why do you think people would think it's cheesy? Because I really don't.
I think some of and I agree. I don't think it is either. I just think this is when they really. So with Iron Man 1, right, the gun was pointed to their head. This movie better be good, or going out of business. Or you're gonna have to sell off assets and all that stuff. And it kind of was like that way with the Hulk too, because the Hulk came out again. We talked about that last time. They're only like 2 months apart, or a month and a half apart. So those 2 movies, Marvel was making them with a gun pointed to their head. You could tell this is the first movie when they're like, "Oh, all right, we can have some fun here." And, I think some of the comedy bits in the movie, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, especially when we get into the Sam Rockwell's character, the Justin Hammer character. But again, I don't see it. I just I think that's why a lot of people probably get on it, and probably there's other story points that I'm remembering now as I'm thinking about it that people didn't like as well. But I think this was the first movie that they were really able to relax, have fun making it. And I think, Joe, you were getting to this point. Like, this is where, again, in my mind, Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man after the first one, but this is where it was like solidified. This is where there was no argument, no contest, no anything. There was no more debate. So again, it's a fun movie for sure. It's a fun movie. I think it's solid. And like I just said, it is not the worst Iron Man movie like some people make it out to be.
Man.
So my counter argument on maybe if someone thinks it's cheesy is how could anything in this movie be as cheesy as that last battle in the original Iron Man? Like, I don't know. And I'm going to get into Justin Hammer here in a bit. I've got some thoughts there, but I don't think any of that was like, so if it's cheesy, it was all done on purpose. Like, there's nothing about him that I think was I'm going to save my thoughts on that.
I want to hop in a little bit. So you mentioned the final battle. I think it's much, much better than the final battle of Iron Man 1. Like, that's not, like, if you can test that, I don't even know how we're having this conversation. It's a much better final battle, but I don't like how Whiplash ends up in a suit just like Obadiah did. And it's just Iron Man fighting a bigger version of Iron Man again. I don't know the source material. I don't know if Whiplash actually ends up in a mech suit in the comics, but like, I really wish they would have just kept him at his core. I'm cool with using
to
Iron
my
Man.
knowledge, I don't believe he does.
Yeah, so
the stuff that I remember.
That's a big nitpick for me when it comes to superhero villains. The trend of just fighting a different version of yourself. We're 3 for 3 so far. Iron Man fought Obadiah, bigger Iron Man suit. Hulk fought Abomination, bigger Hulk. Iron Man, and so obviously Iron Man 2 has layers to that. Whiplash was different. Whiplash was always a villain. He didn't just evolve into this Iron Man clone, but at the end he is in a big Iron Man suit. So it's like, that's a nitpick for me. It's a little bit lazy, but there is a lot more into it. I think this is, of the 3 movies, the best final boss battle, but still kind of falls into that category, what I was just talking about.
Sure. That makes sense. Why don't we talk about the release date and what the box office numbers looked like, if you've got those pulled up, John?
I do. Release date was in May 7th. So May 7th, 2010. So that's 2 years apart from Iron Man 1? It was 2008 for the original Iron Man, so 2 years apart. Box office also pretty far apart, $624 million. So I think that's... what was Iron Man 1? I think this trounces it, right? Like, this was... Iron Man 1.
I believe so.
Okay, by 100 million. So yeah, so not as far as I thought. For some reason, I was thinking the 400 million for Iron Man 1. Iron Man 1 did 585. So separation there for sure. 624. We hit that 6 mark. Obviously a blockbuster. $624 million, especially in 2010. That's big money.
Especially at that time, also, again, for a comic book movie. The comic book golden age that we're in, movie-wise, did not boom at that time. It was still a niche market.
I think this was the start of that. I think Iron Man 1 really solidified that, like, all right, maybe even if Marvel doesn't know what's going on, because we still didn't know what the MCU was back then, but we know this Iron Man series has some potential.
So, almost 10 years to the date here we're talking about this movie. I saw this in theaters. This would have been the first one that I saw in theaters, of course, because I did not see the other 2 that we've talked about. What's funny is I think about my biggest passions in geekdom, right? It's Star Wars and arguably Marvel, just because of the MCU, not necessarily the background on the comics and all that. I really am not well versed at all. But my dad took me to see Star Wars when I was 6. They had the original trilogy special edition, bringing it back to theaters. And he was like, hey, you want to go see Star Wars? And we did. And that was it. I was hooked for life. He said, hey, do you want to go see Iron Man 2? I never thought about going to see it otherwise. So I went with him. We had a really nice time and we enjoyed the movie. My dad and I bond over just about anything. So that's easy. But this was just one more thing that we were able to do. So again, kudos to him. And he kind of started this obsession with me. But that was one that we saw. And I believe we actually all stayed all the way till the end to see the after credits scene, and we just stayed. We didn't know that was a thing, So we inadvertently were like, what is this?
Because it wasn't a thing.
That was not commonplace at all at that point.
What a time capsule to think of a time where you'd go see a Marvel movie and not think to, first of all, Google to see if there's an end credit scene while you're sitting there during the credits, or just stick around because you know there's going to be one.
Yeah, totally different. It's fun to think about nowadays.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in a few weeks, but when I saw the Avengers in 2012, I did not know that there was a post-credit scene the first time I saw it in theaters either.
Oh wow!
So, I obviously I should have, but I did not. So I saw that in theaters, and we've talked about it on the past episodes of MCU Review. That in most cases, unless the movies are too close together, I've been rewatching them leading up to the new one that would be in theaters. So this I've seen quite a few times. I would imagine you guys are in the same boat.
I actually misspoke last week. This is the last Marvel movie I didn't see in theaters.
Okay.
Every single one after this is when my dad and I started going consistently. It was right after we started with Thor, and the rest is history.
Cool. Yeah, so for me, theater-wise, definitely saw this in theaters. Went to see this with the same group of friends I saw Iron Man 1 with. Again, it was that thing where it's like, we're all kind of into superheroes, coming off the Raimi trilogy for Spider-Man. We all had fun with that. We're getting this new, seemingly, kingpin in the superhero industry, this Iron Man. So we're like, all right, 2's coming out. We love the first one. We went and saw it. Loved it. In terms of how many times I've seen it, honestly, probably not that many times, like, completely. Iron Man is one of those movies, one of those trilogies, especially now with Disney Plus, that I'll just toss on. I'm like, all right, I'm working from home. I need something on in the background. Throw Iron Man on. Time for bed, a little tired, gonna be up for a little while, just want something to listen to. All right, throw some Iron Man on. 2 gets thrown in there all the time. I've probably only seen this movie completely like 4-ish times, like 3-4 times probably. I saw it yesterday when I rewatched it, and then I saw it last year when I did my rewatch before Endgame, or whenever Endgame was. It was 2019, right? Where time doesn't matter anymore in the quarantine.
No,
it doesn't even. It's a flat circle. And then I saw it in theaters, and maybe I sat down one other time and watched it completely. But yeah, that's probably about it.
I also talked about how when I saw Avengers, that was enough for me to go to Best Buy and just buy all the Blu-rays without having seen them. I actually owned this prior to that. So I had already become an Iron Man fan just as a result of these standalone movies. And Avengers only took it to a new level, of course. But this was one that I had. I think my dad and I went out and got it pretty much right away when it came out. I remember watching it in the living room, on our home TV and all that, and just fond memories of it together. But all these years later, he's still my favorite MCU character, or arguably so. John and Rashawn, do we want to cue up the trailer for this?
Let's do it. Let's get that trailer
all right.
going. Let me get it up on my end. Cool. Iron Man 2 trailer 1. You guys have it in front of you?
Yep.
All right.
We good.
You're free to go ahead and play it.
Could we pick up now where we left off? Mr. Stark, please.
Yes, dear.
Could I have your attention?
Absolutely.
Our priority here is to have you turn over the Iron Man weapon to the American people.
Well, you can forget it.
We're safe. America is secure. You want my property? You can't have it. But I did you a big favor.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
We're adjourned for the day. You've been a delight.
Oh, it's good to be back.
You come from a family of thieves and butchers. And now, like all guilty men, you try to rewrite your own history. And you forget all the lives the Stark family has destroyed. There will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come.
Guys, Whiplash is so cool. What a cool villain before he puts on an Iron Man suit. Mickey Rourke killed it. I love that character.
I actually think that trailer is the best one yet of the three
I
movies
agree.
we've watched, where it
I
feels
agree.
like it really hyped this movie and like classic things there, like it teases Tony and Pepper's relationship and in a playful way up front, and then it shows how he's really stepped into those Iron Man shoes. And then it takes a little bit of a dark turn and really teases a nice story and some new characters, or at least new actors to the series, if you will. So I think that's a pretty good one overall.
Very cool.
Beautiful
Watching it.
trailer. Yeah. The only thing I'm upset about after watching that, because I've been watching that trailer again over 10 years, or just 10 years exactly. Actually, I don't know why they cut that Pepper and Tony scene in the beginning.
I love
That'd
it.
have been awesome.
No,
I get that for the start of your movie, they probably just wanted to go straight for the money shot of him flying out of the aircraft and then landing in the expo. I probably get it from that perspective. But man, that was a nice little heartwarming.
It was cool. I like that it exists in the trailer, though. I think I'm totally fine with that kind of stuff being complementary to the movie. That kind of footage being out there, it exists. Like that's headcanon to me. That happened, and we just didn't see it in the film. I like that kind of stuff. I don't know if it would have worked perfectly in the film.
I love that moment from the trailer. I don't need it in the film, but I imagine they took it out because if we see what the progression looks like between Tony and Pepper, there still is a little bit of a dance, right? Like we don't know that they're truly an item or a couple till pretty much the end of the movie. And there's that rooftop scene, and that's kind of cements it. I think if you have this early on, maybe that ruins the integrity of that. So from a narrative standpoint, I see what they did, but I love that one. Like it just kind of shows her sass there, and it's like, okay, like she can go blow for blow with him in terms of his sarcasm. But I think that's awesome.
I love that line too. Go get him, boss. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
yeah, I agree.
Rashawn,
it really is.
You mentioned starting off with the expo. Just in terms of a couple of nitpicks, I really wish they would have started off with the expo instead of starting off with the Whiplash scene. I wish they would have built into that Whiplash stuff just naturally. Again, that was fine to start off with it, but with how cool that Stark Expo intro was, and just to like be back in that Iron Man world, and we are like full blown ego Tony Stark Expo's here, fireworks, everything like that. That I think that would have been a perfect opener. Just a little small nitpick. It's fine that it came.
Yeah,
after,
they wanted you tell they wanted to go for the classic opening of showing the villain first, showing the villain coming up to, and that's a classic like movie.
It's a trope,
like comic book movie trope,
for sure.
Yeah.
I love everything surrounding the Stark Expo, and that like it's a year-long thing, because think about that. Like expos that are huge. We think of like maybe E3 or different events throughout the world. They go on for maybe a week, and his is all here because he's Tony Stark and he can, right? Like that is ego at its finest, and I love it. I love that he says it's good to be back. Perfect line for the trailer, right? Like, good to be back. We're getting a sequel to this movie because the first one did well enough so that we could do a sequel.
Yep.
I don't remember seeing that trailer, probably like Rashawn said, since before seeing Iron Man 2. So that's got me just genuinely smiling right now.
Yeah.
I wrote a series before Avengers Infinity War called Some Assembly Required, wrote on each of the movies leading up to that point. So this kind of is actually working as a nice little anchor for us here. We list notable appearances. Obviously, the third one here for Tony Stark with the cameo in Incredible Hulk. Second one for Pepper Potts. The first one for Don Cheadle is Rhodey.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about what we saw in Iron Man 1, and I know, John, you said you wanted to maybe see where that would have gone.
Oh yeah,
but,
sure. Would have been fun.
Don Cheadle here. What do we think of his introduction into the MCU?
I mean, his first lines, "I'm here, it's me, deal with it." Those were his first lines in the film. That's so good. That's just
that kind of sums up Rhodey and Don Cheadle's take.
Yeah, I mean that's that was put there on purpose. Like they make it very clear. Tony Stark whips around Rhodey. Like we're setting this up so nobody can miss the fact that we replaced the character. We replaced the actor for Rhodey. It was well done, super funny. I liked it a lot. I even like that hit me even the first time watching it. I'm like, oh, that's someone new. Oh, okay, they made a joke about it. Very cool. That's
again, self-aware, right?
Yeah.
The MCU is very self-aware for the most part,
Yep.
and that's important to me.
It's you know, and again, I do like Don Cheadle's take, and I like Terrence Howard too. You know, he's doing his thing now, but you know, at the time, again, he wanted more money. They weren't gonna give it to him, and that it split. You know, that was one of the key things about that drama back then. Don Cheadle just came right in, and like the character Rhodey Wood came in, did his job. You know, he had some War Machine action in there, but I love what we got with Don Cheadle. That's another recast that we got early that you almost forget that Terrence Howard was even Rhodey until you actually go back and watch first. You're like, oh yeah, Terrence Howard.
Yeah, no doubt. You think of War Machine, you're thinking Don Cheadle all day. That's it.
And they work. He works very well together in terms of an on-screen chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. I think those. Not that Terrence didn't, but in seeing where we went with movie after movie after movie with those two, they had this kind of brotherly relationship, and I think that was, they could have missed with that recast, but they did a good job. And same thing with Bruce Banner as the Hulk. They did a good job there in those early recasts of the MCU. Very, very notable, obviously. We get the first appearance of Black Widow, so Natasha Romanoff. I love that she looks different in every single MCU movie, whether it's a different hairstyle, a different suit. I think that is so clever. Even in what we're getting in Black Widow in November, like she looks different again.
Different. I will say I absolutely love that fact. I love the fact that her appearance is different in every one. I hated her hair in that final scene she was in when she was all done up. For kind of like her first real appearance as Black Widow in the hallway scene in Hammer's facility. Her hair really bothered me. It just looked like some like weird fake dreadlocks. I'm like, I remember even like watching it back when I first came out. I'm like, what hairstyle? Why? Weird.
I didn't have a problem with it. I liked it.
Bothered me.
They each their own. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan wouldn't have had hair like that though. I'm sorry.
We gotta stop bringing up off-screen and inside jokes.
No, they become on-screen permanently. That's how there's a transition there.
I will say if we're talking about Black Widow, one of the things I will agree with the Iron Man 2 detractors about is her presence in this movie. You could have the character that she played, that could have been anybody. You could have casted some girl off the street and just tell, hey, act like a secret agent. I don't think, and I love Scarlett Johansson. I love her to death. But I don't believe her presence as Black Widow was fully established or felt until Avengers, when she had those scenes with Hawkeye, and just that her own little chunks of screen time to shine alongside the other heroes. I just feel like in this she was kind of there. Again, she had a cool scene. That hallway scene is dope, and that's one of her. I guess if you had her Black Widow MCU highlight reel, that's on there. But
I would say to me that point brings home more to the fact that Black Widow's character wasn't there yet. I don't think ScarJo was part of that. I thought she absolutely stole the show from me. I thought
no. ScarJo did what she had to do as an actress. I'm just talking about the way the character was written into the story. Okay. I don't think
got it. Yeah,
I think it worked because, again, go back 10 years. Even though this was a sequel, the MCU was still not necessarily anywhere. Obviously the plan was for it to be successful, but that was still an unknown. So if you wanted to world build and introduce characters, in a character like Black Widow, I think it made sense to do it in the way that they did. Because nowadays, let's fast forward to 2020, and we're getting a Shang-Chi movie, we're getting an Eternals movie, maybe characters that we would have never been able to do that with. You could make a Marvel standalone movie about just about any of them, and I think the three of us, for example, would just be like, yep, I'll be there. Sign me up.
Don't even
Whereas maybe that wasn't the case. Like if you throw, let's say you build a Black Widow movie back then, it may not have worked. So I kind of see the dynamic of where they were going with that. But I also see Rashawn's point.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to introduce a character as a secondary or a side character for the very first time, they have to serve a purpose to the plot. So she had to have, she couldn't be Black Widow most of this movie. She couldn't have her backstory. She couldn't have X, Y, and Z because she had to serve a purpose for the Iron Man 2 standalone movie plot. So I mean, I think that might be some of the takeaways that, maybe where her character just didn't maybe shine the way it could have, but she had to be there for the plot.
Hey, if only we knew where that character was going to go. And
Yeah.
I loved her in Iron Man 2. I really did. Every movie she's been in has been great. But ScarJo, like, man, I always think back to Legacy. And when we see the end of Avengers Endgame, how we get the credits on who everyone is in the movie, we get to the portion where they really highlight the original 6 Avengers. Where they have their signatures and their logo, like that gives me goosebumps.
So cool.
And her in there is just, oh my gosh, it's so awesome.
We're gonna talk.
I love every
moment
moment.
of the weeks.
That what they did in terms of that, what you're talking about with those credits, that's so impactful. Almost it's become a meme to a sense where almost every form of like series or entertainment, if you go on YouTube, has that. There's a Kingdom Hearts version of that. There's there's a Lord of the Rings version of that. Like everyone, not obviously not official studios, but that's become like such a cool meme to where, I'm sure you'll see stuff like that in the future with big franchises like this, something similar.
Oh, for sure. And we see like the impact of that intro MCU graphic that didn't exist until maybe just a few years back. Where it highlights the different heroes throughout the movies. And we talked about it on Geek Scott Game, where PlayStation kind of has that now, right? They're highlighting their staple of recognizable characters and IPs. So that's I love stuff like that. It's artistic. It's awesome, man. We got Happy Hogan, so Jon Favreau, who I'm a huge fan of. Fun fact, I did name Jon Favreau as one of the 5 people I want to be quarantined with, because I think he could probably cook amazingly, because he did 3 seasons of the Chef Show with all these different world chefs. And because guess what? He could tell me some incredible Mandalorian stories, I bet you, for what we're going to get for seasons 2 and 3.
There you go.
So fun fact there. We got more Clark Gregg as Agent Phil Coulson, a little bit more of an expanded role here that I appreciated. We got Jarvis, John Slattery's first performance as Howard Stark. And I got to tell you, that video or that sequence where Tony is kind of tinkering around and he's under house arrest and he's watching back that video of his dad doing takes on the promotion for Stark Industries. It's one of the most beautiful moments of the movie for me, when he kind of turns to the camera and says that Tony is the greatest thing that he'll ever create. Man, I get choked up when I see that scene. It's just so awesome. And I feel like John Slattery was really well cast there, as we see him recur throughout the MCU after that, right? Like, totally awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he's a perfect pick for Howard Stark. And that moment was so good.
It was a great moment, and it comes full circle in Endgame.
Sure do.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So beautiful. Last thing I had just for notable appearances was, I don't know how you guys feel about this one. I don't know if you feel like this is a little bit of a backtrack or not. But Kevin Feige said that this was the case. That when you see towards the end of the movie, the kid with the Iron Man mask on, and he goes to basically shoot the enemy, and Iron Man shows up and does it for him, that is Peter Parker.
I've heard conflicting stuff on that. I've heard.
Okay.
I've read that. Yes, that was like. I've heard that for sure, and I've heard it both ways. That like, yes, it was confirmed, but I thought I also read that like, he, in retrospect, when he confirmed that, he was kind of just saying it in jest, like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's Peter Parker. So I don't know if that's like actually true, but maybe we can do some more research and report back on it. But I've heard it both ways.
It works from a timeline standpoint for what it's worth, which is great. And honestly, even if they didn't plan on that happening, or if he was sarcastic about it, I'm gonna believe that was Peter Parker.
Yeah, timeline and place.
Like,
I mean,
that's like what. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, like just timeline and place too, because I mean, Peter Parker's, first of all, would be interested in that kind of stuff. He likes tinkering. It's in a New York borough. It's where Peter Parker would be. Like, it makes sense, but like, I don't know.
Iron Man's his hero.
Yeah.
I guess so, but it was a small unrelated thing. That's like when Kathleen Kennedy and company of Lucasfilm pointed at a old photo of the cast posing at the end of Return of the Jedi, and they pointed to one random guy's like, you know what? That's gonna be Commander Rex, an old version of him. That's like that. Like, really? Like,
yeah. I don't know
like that. I think that is kind of garbage. I'll say that. Like, get out of town. That's not Rex.
So,
but
even if they were to double down and say that now that they're considering that Peter Parker, I think there is a 0% chance that they planned that to be Peter Parker. I think when this movie was made, they were not thinking that.
100%. Yeah, because that deal would have never.
And even
if it was on the table, it would have been like in an email. It wouldn't have been fleshed out contract negotiation.
How far ahead would they have had to have thought? I mean, like
they thought ahead, but even Feige admits that was never a part of the. It was just with Spider-Man's arrival in Civil War, that was strictly just going to be Black Panther's intro, and Spider-Man and Sony that fell into their lap. There's no anyone that argues that you're wrong.
Yeah,
no, I totally agree with that point. I know that it felt like that was so last second, even in the scheme of things.
It was. It definitely was
when he came around, and oh man, that day on Twitter was just awesome. I can't wait with everybody being so happy.
We'll talk about that when we get to Civil War.
We will. That was good stuff. Stan Lee's appearance. Larry King? Was that the one?
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. So a small little one. Another funny thing because in the Tony Stark is calling him someone that he's not.
But is it that, or is he actually playing that character? I'm still on the fence about that. Like, is the cameo that Tony Stark thinks he's somebody else, or is the cameo that he is playing this other person?
At first, I always thought what you think with that, and your opinion, John. But the more I've gone on over the years, I think it's Tony Stark being a sarcastic idiot.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I think now that we know how all of the other Stan Lee appearances go, that makes more sense in perspective, but I just wonder if they weren't sure how they wanted to do it, and they were just like, you'll play Hugh Hefner, now you'll play Larry King. I don't know.
I think it's funny because throughout the years, like he calls different characters different things, and I think of like Infinity War during that intense early moment, and he says, what's his name? He calls him Squidward.
Oh,
Ebony Maw, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Like that's the Tony Stark to me. He's always calling people who he thinks they look like. I don't know.
Sure.
There's something else I wanted to really mention here. Bear with me here. I had some notes on this. Oh, so the quote about making God bleed. So from Whiplash.
Yeah.
I think that is super wonderful because it foreshadows that Tony Stark is the first one to make Thanos bleed in Infinity War. All those years later, he's in that battle with Thanos, and Thanos goes, all that just for a drop of blood. But you look back to this quote, and I get goosebumps on it, and it's like God or people will cease to believe in God if they see God bleed, and that is so telling to me, and I love how that kind of loops back. Obviously, that one wasn't planned. That's so far in advance.
Sure.
But man, that's a nice little foreshadowing.
I think that's
there.
one of those coincidences that makes so much sense.
Yeah,
though.
I don't know if it's necessarily a coincidence, but they surely weren't planning for it when they wrote the first line. But they definitely could have been making a callback when they had Thanos, say that. I never thought of that. That's really cool, though.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Could have been a great callback. Absolutely.
That hit me last night when I was watching it, and I had probably seen it as a meme in the past. But just thinking about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's cool. That's crazy. Rhodey says to Tony, this whole lone gunslinger act, you don't have to do it alone. Another kind of, hey man, quit the Playboy act. We're going to team up, and obviously they'd become the Avengers shortly thereafter. So that's another nice little foreshadowing there. I think it's time to dive into some Rockwell,
dude.
So
yes,
let's talk.
Oh my god,
I've got my opinions. I'm not gonna sour this yet. You start.
I love Justin Hammer and I love Sam Rockwell. I'm such a Sam Rockwell.
All right, good.
Dude, I think we might be all on the same page here. He's just such a good comic book villain, and of course, and like if that's the cheese you're mad about when you see this movie, I don't know what you want. I don't know what you like then, because that's just so much fun. He kills it. He's super, super funny. Super just...
To the MCU that we ended up getting. With jokes that are all Sam Rockwell, Justin Hammer type of jokes that he was telling.
Yeah. So
you love it, and you love it now.
Yeah, dude. I'm just such a big Sam Rockwell fan. He might be my favorite actor, pound for pound. I love Sam Rockwell.
I love his role in this movie so much on so many levels. I love how he talks to Whiplash in their first meeting. I love him dancing out on stage. I think it's hysterical.
So
I
good.
love when I love how he talks to Whiplash right before that sequence, how he really gets mad and he's like, all right, take his shoes and then do this and do that. And then I really, really love when he is selling the weapons
Oh yeah, that's good.
to the
That's
US.
so used car salesman just
Yeah.
Hammer. Oh, it's
I love he
but
said,
a-
no,
but a
not
good
your
used car
style. And he
salesman.
goes to the and he gets to the last one, he calls it the ex-wife, which is great. But then I love that he's so confident in his product and he's like, I can't read you. You're like a sphinx. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's hysterical.
So good.
And then he ends up with a huge sale on his hands,
And
and
he's just, like,
his
dumbfounded.
reaction is priceless.
Yeah.
He's like the whole thing. Like that is
all of it.
awesome.
I think
the
my
type of character. Oh, go ahead, John.
my
I'll let you
favorite
go.
my favorite Sam Rockwell moment in this movie is towards the beginning at the press hearing at the Senate where he's like just completely crapping on Iron Man, but then he wraps up with "God bless America, God bless Iron Man." It's just like the sleazy car salesman, like he's just trying to win everybody over, and it's just I love it.
Oh, he's a snake, dude. You can't trust that guy as far as you can throw him. Let's talk about that sequence, by the way. That is Tony Stark at his finest.
So good.
He's a smartass in the room, and everyone's kind of laughing. And I love how he kind of hacks into the screen
TVs,
there
yeah.
and shows some of the footage. Oh my gosh, I love all of that and how sarcastic he is.
Breakfast and
I
Hammer?
could talk about it forever.
So good.
I love it.
Yeah, that's classic Iron Man right there. That's his wit. That's his technology. He just controls the room. Everybody is just on his side, unless you got a reason not to be.
Yeah, and that leads to that line at the end.
It's funny
how annoying a little prick can be.
That was
Yeah.
hilarious. Again, there's so many good like little jokes and stuff like that. I don't know how or why people poo-poo on this movie. Again, it's not the best thing ever, but it's not trash like
It's
people make it
great,
out
man. It's
to
more
be.
Iron Man. Like, what do you? I think, and we'll talk about it when we get to 3 too. Obviously, you've spoiled where you think about Iron Man 3 or Sean, but like more Iron Man is more Iron Man. Just give me more.
You don't
RDJ.
know the extent of it. I'm saving it.
We'll get there.
But
This-
Sam Rockwell was great, man. I mean,
Same.
just to sum it all up, just the ex-wife, and then that moment comes at the end when Rhodey actually tries to use it,
Hammer tech?
and then and Tony's just like hammer tech, and he's just like,
Yeah.
It just isn't done. It falls in the water.
So
Oh
good.
my gosh. Dude,
and
this
then
movie,
one more thing, Joe. I'm sorry.
No,
You're good,
all
you're
day.
With the when he's having Ivan test out the suit, and then he has his boy with him.
The helmet.
And he's like, "That's not a helmet." He was like, "Put that on.
Can you
that
put your
on."
head in
And
this?
Guys,
He's like, I can't.
he's like, "I can't do it."
God.
You see this? You see
It
this?
makes- I love that so much, and the noise it makes when it hits his head is like it's
Yes, yeah.
Dun, dun.
it's so funny because like everyone in that position would do the same thing. Like that's his boss. He's this. You're gonna
He's
be
like,
an
I'm gonna
idiot
do
to
it. Sure, you asked me to.
Yeah. Okay.
And the type
Okay.
of- and the type of character they made him, I can't stop thinking about it. A new thought I had as I'm watching it for the MCU reviewed here. I feel like Justin Hammer's character was one of those kids that got bullied, didn't like the cool kid, as you can see in that first scene in the movie. He doesn't like the whole cool kid. He's not a fan of that. But as he got older in life and got successful and his book smarts paid off, he tries to throw his version of jokes out there that just aren't funny. Like,
Doesn't
dudes that
work.
trying to be funny, you're not funny. But the magic that they did with this movie, I'm losing the director. I'm not sure who did it, but whoever wrote it, I should maybe give more credit to. Justin Hammer's character is corny. Don't get it twisted. The stuff that he does, like that stuff in real life, if someone did this, like, dude, you're corny, like, just stop. But it works so well still
In that character,
because you understand that's his character, and but they still make it funny. Movies try to do that all the time, and the character you still look at as corny, where we more so we laugh at him versus we laugh with Tony.
Yeah, we
It's
don't.
just-
Hammer doesn't work without Tony Stark because it's the dichotomy of the playboy millionaire versus the dud billionaire. You know, the guy who's just not quite up to par and just the jokes don't land. He gets the recycled girlfriends. Like Tony Stark did a spread with her last year. Like that kind of stuff is just like it's good.
One last thing. This is it for
No, we can do a hammer. We can just clip this out and do a Justin Hammer podcast. I'm fine with that.
Hammercast done.
At the end, at the end when Pepper and that Black Widow are there, and they're interfering in his plans, and he just looks at his boy. Excuse my French here. First time I'm gonna swear on the Geekiverse. He's like, man, we got to get these bitches out of here.
What's funny is I never actually, for some reason, heard that line till last night. I had subtitles on because I was watching it in bed.
Yeah.
And I was like, really, dude? But that's him, right? That's his character.
Yeah,
like, he's just... He'd be... Yeah.
Hammercast, really? You don't want to go with Hammer Time? You don't want to go with the obvious podcast title?
No. It was too obvious. Come on. It was in my head, but come on. We got to stay on brand, man. We got Dadcast, we got Pluscast, Hammercast. So this movie, we're talking about all these moments we like, and it's like one more and one more. I feel like it's so short, but it's actually 2 hours and 4 minutes long. Obviously, that includes credits.
Yeah.
But I remember, so last night I'm editing Dadcast, and I'm kind of watching this in the background. It flew by, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's only a half hour left of this thing. Like, that is oftentimes the sign of a good movie. Not always, but in my opinion, when there's one that flows like that, and you didn't feel like you sat there for an hour and a half to 2 hours or however long it was, that's pretty good to see that it was consistent. It was, they had it going for them.
Especially considering, because again, we're groomed to now expect these comic book movies to be anywhere from, let's say, 215 2.5.
I think I think 215 to 245 is kind of like what we expect from a Marvel movie right now.
Yeah, like nowadays, and even movies outside of the Marvel movies too are trying to match that length.
Yeah.
I guess they think that's great storytelling.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, it just depends. I didn't mean that as a shot. But so now going back and watching all of these, like I think all of these are right at that 2 hour and 50-ish minute range. These are flying by for me.
Same, man.
It's almost like binging a TV show in a way. With Rockwell, I wrote down that during his weapons presentation to the U.S., he had such like Ocean's 11 vibes to me. Like, he was ripped right out of that movie, but in a cheesy way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you've got Brad Pitt, who's really cool, but you've got this guy who's just this knockoff cool. It doesn't really work, but it works because of what John said. He doesn't work without Tony Stark being in this movie. Very complimentary. Another thing I didn't pick up until last night, again, watching the subtitles here, when Stark picks up the strawberries on his way to see Pepper.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, "Are you Iron Man?" And he goes, "Sometimes."
Oh, you don't notice that? Oh, I love that.
No,
oh yeah, so good.
More building on the theme of being out in the open with who you are.
Yeah.
In terms of hidden identities.
So good.
I thought that was funny. Another nice tease for the further MCU was that he needed Cap's shield to complete his final project, and that it wasn't anything epic like deflecting light or energy. It's that it literally was a placeholder.
You cannot, and nobody can appreciate that scene until the MCU is like where it's at. Like that when that aired in theaters, nobody had the appreciation that we have for it now. Like, that is so good in retrospect, especially like what we know about the relationship between, first of all, Cap and Tony just one-on-one, but the way Cap and Howard Stark were and how that was always an issue with Tony. Like, that is so good.
Because that Tony Stark would view himself as the alpha and that Captain America is the secondary character,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
So that is hysterical to me that
this is exactly what I need.
He's holding it up for him almost.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect retrospective now.
Really good moment.
A funny thing, if we're just talking about like things that hint farther, just when you get to the end, and he's sitting in the little shield base that they made with Nick Fury again, and and he's looking at the Avengers Initiative thing. It's just so funny that at that time they were evaluating these people and doing personality tests. If you're an Avenger, can you save the world? Or do you have this, and this type of personality? If so, you're an Avenger.
And more of a Monday guy or a Saturday kind of guy.
Yeah. Is your availability on Monday or Fridays? Like, which one works better for you? Like, they were doing that as the Avengers stuff. That's kind of silly.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny because honestly, that's a little bit how they were doing this, right? They were shoehorning this universe together into something that became so much bigger.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Disney and Marvel, so we see that a little bit in the film. Obviously, we get more of a tease when the post-credit scene and Coulson goes to New Mexico.
Yeah, and
teasing the next movie.
It was cool that they hinted at that a few times throughout the film too. When Coulson was babysitting Stark, he dropped that line as I've got more important stuff in New Mexico, and even Nick Fury says something. I've got bigger problems than you down in the Southwest region. So like they're planting that stuff. They're my note here is full swing MCU world building.
Yeah,
I think around this time is when they officially start. I mean, I think they had, again, rough draft of what they wanted to go for, but you can start to see they started Feige and the crew started feeling themselves a little bit. All right, let's throw that in there because we're going to do this and we're going to do that. There were no guarantees before.
Yeah, like Thor was a greenlit film when this movie was made. Like they have another movie, so like they can easily tease it. They can literally give you the hammer in New Mexico. Like, all right, cool, we have a next stepping stone. Like it's cemented in here.
Yeah, and it's really nicely done where sometimes you'll get in movies. I know some people criticize like Star Wars with throwing in Easter eggs that are unnecessary. I often don't feel that way, but with regards to the MCU, like they did it in a really important way where it wasn't just like, hey, go see, like maybe like the DCEU would have done this, is to go see our movie because that superhero is going to be in it. It was like, okay, now I'm curious. Oh, wow. Okay. You're going to New Mexico. Why? And things like that. Oh my gosh. Now looking back, that's Captain America's shield.
Yeah.
They did it in a thoughtful and meaningful way.
Very much
which actually benefited them greatly when it came to, what they were going to be investing in their own future.
Oh yeah. It paid off more than they could have even known.
Unbelievable to look back at now. The hindsight is incredible on all of this. And that's what makes this show kind of fun, I think.
Yeah.
The last note that I had just randomly here was every time I hear the song Pick Up the Pieces, I think of Hammer. Pick Up the Pieces is the name of the song he dances to on stage. I cannot not think of him in that goofy dance and that spin in that gray suit that he does. So kudos to him on that. That's it. That's all I had for notes. Anything else that came to mind that I didn't get to or you guys were looking to bring up?
You guys hinted at it earlier, but the final battle for me, that was really cool. Especially the part specifically where they're fighting the hammer drones. Only because that brings back just a little bit of nostalgia for me. Only because I've seen that scene, like I've seen this movie 8 to 10 times. I've watched that scene close to maybe the hundreds, and the reason why is because that scene way back when I used to work at Best Buy. That scene is amazing if you have home theater equipment. That was one of my go-tos, but a couple other people's go-tos for demoing audio. So that scene is really great if you have a sound system to crank that up and because you're getting bullets flying everywhere. You're getting the repulsors that Tony uses. You're getting all this motion, jets and all explosions. You're getting a lot of that. So that scene from an audio standpoint is amazing, but obviously visually as well.
It makes sense audio wise
because
like they even allude to it in the film. It's like they're in the death pit or whatever he says, like you're in the death zone or whatever. Mm-hmm. They are centered. I mean that would be great for directional audio, so that makes a lot of sense.
And speaking of that, it's funny because they were arguing about who's the big gun, and it's funny because Rhodey legitimately has the big gun, but at the same time, that's Iron Man.
Yeah,
that's his suit that you're wearing. So that's kind of funny.
You have a big gun. You're not the big gun.
Right.
Just more awesome banter between those guys.
Speaking of those two.
Oh, and by the way, we never see that whatever that move is, we never see that again. The with his lasers I can only use the words. We never see that again.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, he gets other technology that's 10 times better, but
yeah, he works on a lot of suits over the years, right? All the different mocks.
Yeah. So. If we're talking about those two together, one scene I want to bring up before we wrap up, like plot and stuff like that, is the birthday party scene where Tony gets drunk and he's absolutely just wasted in his suit and he's throwing a party. Like that's one of those things that's crazy to think about. Like if some billionaire playboy really did privatize this kind of technology and like really was kind of unhinged the way Tony Stark was, like, man, what happens when he has a few too many and just loses it? Like, cool scene. It was a lot of fun, obviously, but like it got me thinking, like, oh crap, this is nuts.
Brought an element of realism to it.
Yeah, which I don't even know
you
if
can
it.
see something like that happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
An element with that. Maybe this is potentially me reading a little bit too much into the connective threads, but I like very early because again, the MCU is very self-aware and it's also more realistic than people give it credit for in terms of how they tackle social issues. The little bit that they do. If there was a billionaire playboy that had a suit like this, the government would try to seize that immediately. So I like that we get a little sprinkle of what we kind of get in Civil War down the road of government control, regulation on a superhero type of person. Again, I think that's me reading into it a little bit too much there.
I mean,
but I like that that's an issue that got addressed instead of on a comic book page. Oh, the government doesn't care, it's just whatever. But that would actually be an issue that would be tackled in real
for sure. I think as outlandish the MCU obviously can get with like magic and crazy stuff like that, it will always be a grounded series. Like it always assumes that it's living in our real world. All this stuff is happening, but everything else is the same. Like there's the U.S. government is a thing, and World War II happened, and Soviet Russia, like all that stuff happened. Like it's still, for as crazy as it is still grounded in a lot of ways.
Rashawn, I think that's a really good point, actually. One I had not considered before, where it is foreshadowing that, hey, they're on the map, for the U.S. government. The U.S. government, and they make reference to it numerous times throughout, that they're kind of on the ass of the army to try to get stuff done, whether it's getting that suit in their hand and he's like, oh, I've got to deliver a good report to my superior. Like, they're trying to take that over in a not so subtle way, yet doing it unofficially, right? Like whether it's Rhodes going and taking that suit, you name it. I think that's really good, and that is a good leading point into Civil War 6 years later. So yeah, kudos on that one.
Yeah.
One other thing that I thought about that I want to mention just before I forget, between Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2, it was almost 2 years. Almost exactly 2 years between those releases, 23 months and in a few days. With what's going on with our quarantine now, between the last Marvel movie we got, the Spider-Man last summer, to Black Widow, that's the longest we've gone since.
Oh man!
Between MCU releases, That's crazy, right?
It's rough.
Like obviously it wouldn't have happened. Would have been
we would have
10
already
months
seen
between,
Black Widow, yeah.
But kind of interesting to think about. Like this is the longest we've gone between MCU movies because of COVID-19. A client of mine brought it up actually today and was like, dude, I'm dying without Marvel movies. Like I should have seen Black Widow by now. And I'm like, yeah. You got to wait, unfortunately.
Mark my words. Here's a prediction that I'm going to stick to. Because again, that my MCU is very self-aware, tackles political stuff. There will be a COVID reference in a future MCU film.
Interesting.
There will be one. It'll be something silly. Again, like remember that thing that kept us grounded? And it'll be something so silly. What movie or, who knows? But there'll be some silly reference. Because they like these movies, and you'll notice it as you get farther. They technically they kind of take place in the real time of the year.
There was a point where we were matched up, right? Like they were year for year for a while, and so there was some time stuff involved. But yeah,
yep.
They're for the most part, pretty chronological, which I've always really appreciated. Obviously, Captain America jumps back, and Captain Marvel now goes back. But for almost 20 movies, they were pretty much in a row. I really like that, and that they take place kind of in our real world is always nice. It's that element of realism that we mentioned. Any other points that we wanted to bring up before we kind of get towards wrapping this up here?
No, I think we can start ranking them.
Oh, hang on. Favorite? I don't know if we want to do this or not. Favorite non-primary character?
Yeah, I think we kind of
all agreed.
Yeah, we're all on the Hammer train. We talked about enough of them with Black Widow and Hammer.
What about what we did on the first two episodes was quote unquote that moment, the moment in the movie that is your favorite. Yeah, take a second, guys.
For me, it's the death pit scene. Just because, again, I've went through that so many times, seeing it. John, you look confused. The ending with John, not with John and Rhodey, with Tony and Rhodey. With the hammer drones.
Gotcha.
Yes, with the one we were just talking about with him in the home theater. So.
Yeah, I thought you meant a literal deathbed. I'm thinking about the opening scene with Whiplash and his father. And I'm like, when he's on his deathbed, like I don't know what. That's
my favorite scene.
No, advance my birth. Yeah,
How are we an hour and so in this, and we've just now said I want my bird for the first time? What is going
I
on?
was just gonna say
We
the same
have
thing.
failed you
Yeah.
all.
What a good character. I like that character. I know people get on him, but
Yeah, man.
it's funny. I remember going into the movie and I read like a short review of it in the Buffalo News. Like, think how crazy that is. And it said it made reference to him having the toothpick in his mouth the entire film. I was like, all right, that's a nice little thing to look out for. You know, stuff like that. It's cool.
Yep.
I think that moment for me in the movie, by the way, that we're talking about is something I already talked about. And it was when Howard Stark is turned into Tony essentially from that video and saying he's the best thing he'll ever create. That one always hits home with me. I think it's just beautiful. That one sticks out the most to me.
Cool.
All right. We want to do this?
Let's do it. Let's get into the rankings, baby. I'm so ready.
All right.
All right. So you two can't
John,
see
you
it.
made your prediction.
The people at home can see it. So right now, the current rankings, we have Iron Man ranked 1. We have the Incredible Hulk ranked 2. Let's get the Iron Man 2 text visual here. All right. Who here thinks that this movie is better than the Incredible Hulk and should rank higher? Josiah raised his hand. Rashawn raised his hand. I raised my virtual hand. I agree. So
there was a time frame where I actually wouldn't have agreed with that,
That's
but in
insane.
recent years, I've come around.
Wow.
All right. So Iron Man is now sitting at number 2. Who here thinks that Iron Man should hop Iron Man 1 to become the number 1 on the list?
No.
I knew it. I'm right. I knew it.
You know.
So, sorry.
John, he spoiled the episode right at the beginning.
We've got 1 vote for yes. We've got 2 votes for no. Iron Man 2 stays at the number 2 spot. The current ranking is Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk.
You can make an argument for it. That argument is wrong, but it's okay.
I mean, we can't make an argument. It's a fact. It's on the screen. It's literally the ranking. There's no argument. It's literally right there.
Yeah, no, Iron Man 2 is better than
These
Iron Man
are going
1.
to be solidified when it's
No,
all said and
this
done,
is
Joe.
this is a cumulative ranking. You're gonna get some later. I'm sure you'll hop over something Rashawn didn't want.
Oh, you guys wait.
All right, so
I'm gonna have my revenge. But let me tell you, I don't think. You know what? Maybe I'll think about it for a little bit. I don't think I'm gonna use a snap on this.
No,
because here's why.
All right,
and this is
I was ready.
Maybe a bad reason
to get rid of your snap here.
No, not yet. I don't want to do that because I don't think, based on past research, I'll get the public to side with me. So I don't want to waste one.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah,
no.
You're not going to. So again, for people at home, if you're not familiar, you can see on the screen here, we all have 3 Thanos gauntlets, snapping motions by our little pictures there. The idea is that we're going to run into situations like this where someone is going to get snubbed. Rashawn and I think that Iron Man 2 is below Iron Man 1. Josiah's upset. He disagrees. Sorry, it's a voting system. That's how it goes. If he wanted to, he could use one of his snaps. His snap would say, okay, I want to flip Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 1. The 2 movies have to be touching on the list. We can't jump around. They have to be touching. But you use your snap, and what we do is we put a poll out there on twitter.com. We're _Geekiverse on Twitter. So we put a poll out there. It's a 7-day long poll, and it's going to simply read Iron Man versus Iron Man 2. If he can get the people to agree that Iron Man 2 should be better, then he would win. His snap would be successful, and they would hop. But I think he's smart enough to realize that the people would not be with him on this one.
I'm smart enough to realize that most people would not be smart enough to be with me on it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, let me say this. So, did we mention that you only get 3 snaps throughout this entire series?
Correct. Yeah, there's 3 on the. Yeah, they can see them on the screen. We get 3 snaps.
That's the other thing. Like, I want to save it for later on when there's movies I really want to pull for. Because honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really care so much that Iron Man 2 is not ranked above Iron Man 1. I love both movies. I got to tell you that. So here sitting, with my friends John and Rashawn who are saying that it's better, of course I'm mad at them. That's not the point. I am okay with Iron Man being ranked above Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
It's Tony Stark, man. They're both wonderful movies.
For sure.
It's okay.
And
it's okay.
For what it's worth, you don't have to, like, if we go this whole series and we agree on most of them, you can go back and snap Iron Man 2 over 1 whenever you want.
That's the other thing. We're too early in the series. We're week 3 of 23. I've got to save my pennies here. I'm not going to use them all at once.
Yeah.
So
now the only problem is I think Rashawn and I are going to put some other movies in between Iron Man and Iron Man 2. So you're going to might have to.
That's part of the strategy. Like, I'm going to have to hope that doesn't happen.
Oh, it's going to happen.
But it's not make or break for me. Like,
right.
I don't. There's other movies on here So I mentioned like Lou from the Geekiverse would get downright mad if certain movies ranks in certain areas.
I can't wait to show him our list.
He's gotten so pissed at me over the years. But me, I don't care so much. But there are certain ones that like I in my mind, I've already got like a list where I'm like, those are the ones that I want to sink my investment behind, which is my snap.
I love this.
So it will live on. Yeah, this is gonna get great. This is just the start of it. I am very intrigued to see what happens next week because opinions can be a little bit all over the board on that.
Let's talk about next week. What is next week?
We got Thor next week.
We have Thor next week. We do.
Spoiler, not to get too far down this rabbit hole, but Thor Ragnarok changed my opinion on a lot of MCU stuff. I'll just leave you with that.
That's fair. But hey, we got our current ranking. We have Iron Man, Iron Man 2, and then we have the Incredible Hulk, which I don't think is gonna get bumped up at all. It actually it might.
No, John, come on. You're wrong. It's gonna
will eventually, but not. I don't think next week.
Oh, next week. Hey, we're watching these movies. No. We are ranking these as we see them. Who knows? I could watch Thor next week and just be appalled. Who knows?
Not that I want to spoil anything, but what week is Thor: The Dark World?
I've only seen that movie.
Rashawn calls it sick.
I've only seen Thor: Dark World one time. We
gotta have Dell on that one, right? Like he's in the same boat. He's got to talk about that.
Dell is always welcome. So if he wants to hop in, he's always welcome to discuss. But speaking of Dell.
Speaking of Dell, as we mentioned, the show is sponsored by Fantastic, a wonderful group of people that are not only loving and caring, but they have immense hearts. They give back. They help families in need. They help charities around Western New York. They do good in the world, to put it succinctly. Visit 26shirts.com/Fantastic. Check out the catalog. There's some wonderful merchandise on there. They've just released a Darth Vader themed t-shirt last week. New designs are happening all the time. They're timely, though. You got to get them within a week's time, typically, and then they're gone forever. They do, however, have a small number of backstock designs that you can see. Again, one last time, that's 26shirts.com/Fantastic. Portions of every purchase go to, as I mentioned, a charity or a person or a family in need. Awesome stuff. We are so grateful to Dell and Fantastic for being a part of this. Even though Dell's not on the show today, we're just honored to even know him, let alone partner up.
Yeah, I mean, them being a sponsor, they're a part of every show we do here. And with that Fantastic sponsorship, they are also partnering with us to give away one free shirt from Fantastic every week, every episode of the MCU Reviewed. So week 1 we did Twitter. We selected our giveaway winner. That shirt's in the mail. Week 2 is still live. That one's a Facebook. If you like and share, follow a couple of rules in the Facebook post we have there. You can enter to win a free shirt. This week we're going to go with Instagram. We're just going to run the gamut. We're going to hop onto the next social media. So once this episode will post on Monday the 18th, right? That's math. Today's the 14th. 4 days will be 18. There we go. So yeah, Monday the 18th, this episode is going to post live. Along with that, you will see a post on our Instagram page very specifically saying, hey, red flag, giveaway alert. This is the giveaway post. We'll throw some instructions on there. It's going to be something like following us on Instagram, liking the post, following 26 Shirts, Fantastic, stuff like that. But you will be entered to win a free shirt from Fantastic and the folks over at 26 Shirts. Super exciting.
Doesn't take much, folks. Give them a follow, give them a like. Well, as John outlined, it's different every week. It is well worth the cause that they fight for. So, guys, this was a fun discussion. I really, really look forward to the latter portions of the next few episodes here to discuss where we're ranking these different movies. We want to hear from you, the listeners. Visit us on all social media, facebook.com/the Geekiverse, Twitter, we are at the _Geekiverse, and on Instagram, the Geekiverse. Let us know what your rankings look like to this point. We want to know. We'll bring up some of those on air. You know, bring some hot takes.
Hey, give us some
because
heat.
We are certainly going to have some.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's going to get good,
heat.
guys. Spoiler alert, I'm not really mad at John and Rashawn. I'm sorry for my outburst there.
We'll
guys.
hash it out.
It's okay. We'll hug it out, bro, when this is all over. For my boys, for John and Rashawn, I'm Josiah. We will catch you next week for the Thor episode of the MCU Reviewed. Have a wonderful night.
Stay marvelous.